Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel PokeMaineEvent here. And today we're going to be going over the Indianapolis Regional Championships, the first official tournament of Regulation G, which was won by Rajan Bal. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Rajan is an Indian player. He won with the team of Miraidon, Whimsicott, Incineroar, Ogerpon, Cornerstone, Frigiraffe, and Ursaluna Bloodmoon. Funny enough, right, this team comp, right, minus the Miraidon, of course, not too uncommon. You have the Incin, the Frigiraffe, and the Redirector for Fake Out to get the Blood Moon in and kind of just sweep. That's not an uncommon like archetype, even though I don't know if Cornerstone's won events or that many events before, which is kind of intriguing. But the Miraidon kind of just puts this whole team together because Moves kind of gives this team like trouble, and this just kind of shuts off the Spore, right? And then this also redirects the Spores as well in case for some whatever reason this has gone down on terrain that's been overridden. And you have a Spore immunity. The Incin wasn't immune, but I'm pretty sure it was Terra Grass and it was like an AV set. I really like AV sets. So he had 1, 2, 3 natural immunities, and then he had like Terra Grass as well. So Amoonguss was not going to just dominate Rajan's team. Obviously, the most surprising part for most people is that Miraidon won the entire tournament. I'm going to go down here to some usage stats. So you see here, they have the day 1 usage up and the day 2 usage up. I'm going to go into day 1 usage first. I'm also going to be using this resource as well to go over some stuff, but we'll get to that in a moment. So as you can see, I want to go in the Miraidon being at 9% day 1 usage, and then also want to go to the Kyogre and the Groudon, just because like 3 restricted Pokemon that I guess people kind of were losing faith in a sense, still managed to make it into the top 8 of the restricted. Right now, you could say that's because like the restricted pool in general is not that great. These are probably 8 of the best ones you can find realistically, and I wouldn't argue with you at all. So it makes sense, but even then, you expected 3 that people lost faith in to be like the bottom 3, right? But instead, the Miraidon and Kyogre make 2 of the top 5, which I thought was really interesting, especially Kyogre being at 11%, being the 3rd highest restricted, because people really were kind of dogging on Kyogre for a while. Maybe people thought that because people were dogging on it, people wouldn't prepare for it, or maybe people just thought it was a good meta call. Calyrex Shadow obviously was going to be number 1 most used for the day. Calyrex Isis was most likely going to be the number 2 used for the day. I definitely expect the Koraidon and Terrapagos to probably be 3 and 4. Koraidon ended up being number 4. Miraidon ended up being number 5. Terrapagos being 6th is actually a bit surprising. I thought it would be higher. I guess people just weren't as big of a believer in it as we were led to believe. Zamazenta being here makes sense, and then Groudon rounding out. Like I said, even though it's inconsistent, it's a strong mon still, right? There's still some Groudon believers out there. Shout out to my boy Mateen, who day 2'd with Groudon actually, so shout out to him. He hits his Precipice Blaze. He says it's a skill issue. Hit your moves, as simple as that. The top 12 Pokemon as far as non-restricted, because they separated them into the restricted and non-restricted, and rightfully so because they're just kind of grouped differently. Incineroar being number 1 is very expected, 61%. Urshifu Rapid at 39 is still really high. Amoonguss at 38 is really high. Rillaboom, remember what I said previously, like a previous video, when I was going over the meta stuff, like if you just look at these first 6, expect these 6 to always be the top 6 most used mons in any tournament. And guess who was correct? Because you just take 5 of these 6, you pick a restricted, and you just be on your merry way. That's what kind of a lot of teams kind of break down into in this format. Either you want Tailwind, or you want like this, or you want Scarf, you want Fake Out, maybe you want Terrain, maybe you just want the pseudo restricted, because this thing is a restricted Pokemon. I don't care what no one says. But yeah, you pick these ones, and then you kind of just go on your merry way. The next row is a bit more interesting. Fluttermane down at 27%. I know down at 27% sounds a bit funny, but like it's Fluttermane, right? It's something we've seen as high as 70% usage. I think the issue is that with Fluttermane, why it's not just like controlling the whole thing, is because I guess with your restricted and like an Urshifu and like a one of these here, the why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? The Raging Bolts, I'm sorry. You have a plenty of offense, right? So you kind of need some bulk to round it out, and Fluttermane doesn't really give you that. Not to mention, right now Fluttermane is facing an issue where it's in the same speed tier as the other restricted, such as Miraidon and Koraidon, and it's also competing with Chien-Pao, right? It's always competing with Chien-Pao. With just having 1 Pokemon to compete with is fine, but having 3 others to compete with in your speed tier that are all heavy hitters and are generally naturally bulkier than you are, Chien-Pao with the Sash, and then these 2 just have way better natural bulk than Fluttermane does. Not being able to just like always reliably OHKO them, whereas they can like reliably OHKO you, it's a bit of a problem for Flutter Mane. And the reason that they can reliably OHKO Flutter Mane is because Flutter Mane is trying to run max speed timid so it doesn't get outsped by those consistently. And because it's doing that, it's having a little bit of a tough time redistributing some of that extra bulk it would normally use, right? Flutter Manes generally don't run 252 timid. They would run timid, but they wouldn't run 252. But because they're trying to get that either that booster speed to outspeed or get that speed boost in the sun, or just to be, or you just don't want to be underspeeding these things outside of those conditions, people have been moving the EVs into 252 speed. And like I said, because you are already kind of not super strong when you're timid and low special attack, even with choice specs, you're still not really OHKOing these things when they terror either. Whereas they're hitting this back for a lot of damage. So it's a bit of a struggle for Flutter Mane in that sense, but it's still not gonna go anywhere, right? 27%, still very, very respectable. For draft being here makes sense. Pelipper being here makes sense as well, because a lot of people were hyping up Pelipper since like day one, just being a range setter to counteract opposing weathers. Good answer into stuff like Kyogre, good into Groudon, good partner to some restrictors like Zamazenta and Zacian and Calyrex. It just made sense that it was here. Ogerpon Wellspring being here makes a lot of sense. No Heart Flame, which is interesting, but it kind of makes sense that Ogerpon Wellspring is the most used Ogerpon, just because it's good redirector, good help into a lot of the restricts, and good into like Kyogre. It's kind of just so you don't get team checked by Kyogre, so it's good to have something like this, so it makes sense. Chiyu being here makes sense, and so does Urshifu Dark. The reason that they both make sense as opposed to being mons that sometimes don't always make the top 12 is because they're both good into these two. The two Calyrexes, they're just really good into that. And you'll notice they probably are the primary reason, if I had to guess, as to why the conversion rate for Calyrex Shadow was not better. So if you go to the day 2 stuff, you will see here that Calyrex Ice went from 18 to 32, right? Because even the super effective hits don't just always take it out. Calyrex Shadow really, I don't want to say really struggled, but it didn't excel. I think there's a difference between struggling and not excelling. It just kind of just played neutral. 18 to 16% is like not a really great conversion, but it's not like an incredible fall off either. You just kind of played very, very neutral, which is, you still expect a Pokemon this good to do better, even with the over index of hate. Yeah, even with the over index of hate, you kind of expect it to do well. At least, you know, make it to its original day 1 number at least, I would say maybe, but it's not bad. I just think, like I said, the people were so fixated on countering this Pokemon because they knew it would be everywhere, and it was the number 1 use restricted, that you see Chiyu, something that again is never ever on these top 12 lists as of late, is on there. Even if you look at the day 2 list, Chin-Pao is back in top 12 usage because again, it's really good into Calyrex Shadow with Sucker Punch, with its own Focus Sash, resisting its natural stabs. It's just really good into this Pokemon. So like you'll see Pokemon like that, even Ursaluna, which doesn't take any damage from Calyrex, is back in the top 12 for day 2 because again, these Pokemon are just really, really good into Calyrex Shadow. I'm going into the conversion rates of the other restricted. Kyogre went from 11 to 11, so just about neutral. So that's pretty good for Kyogre. Miraidon, the winner of the tournament, actually also decreased, right? So it didn't convert super high at all. Terapagos, which was down in number 6, converted and jumped all the way to number 3. So what that tells me is this Pokemon is what we thought it was, even though some people kind of obviously didn't have enough faith that it wasn't higher. The people who did have faith in it were rewarded and they converted high. So I think that's a really important thing to note. Zamazenta is about neutral. So Koraidon, however, had a big drop, which is kind of concerning for a Pokemon that won a couple limitless tours, right? I guess maybe the over index of hate on that kind of affected a lot, but I'm looking at because I think looking at the top 12 Pokemon down here is a good way to kind of to predict why these may not have done well or why they did so great. Koraidon having this intense drop off might have a lot to do with the 26% conversion rate of like Pelipper, for example, the 70% of Incineroar. Obviously these all run Clear Amulet, but it's not a Pokemon that likes to have to chase after this thing. You get faked out and then it switches and then you go collision course into something that's neutral into fighting. Like it still have to chase the Incineroar around, but I think it's the Pelipper and the Tornadus mostly. 1, the Rain Setter, and 2, the Rain Dance Setter. Not to mention it also resists fighting type stab, and then in Rain it doesn't do any damage, same as Pelipper. And then Kyogre doing well is always going to be worse for Sunsetters, so I think that's why this dropped. And also Groudon also dropped a couple percent, which I think between Kyogre doing well, Pelipper doing well, and Tornadus doing well, that's probably the primary reason why Koraidon seemed to have a bit of a rough time going from almost 11% to under 5%. And Groudon people probably just missed their plea blades, so they didn't convert. That's kind of as simple as it is. Day two of the top 12 non-restricted, Incineroar had a jump to 70%, which is kind of insane, right? Because usually a Pokemon with this high of usage on day one, being at 61%, does not ever, maybe not to my memory, doesn't just usually jump and have that great of a conversion rate. Usually it's a little bit lower, just because what ends up happening is you end up, like I always tell you guys, the Incineroars will end up facing each other and knocking each other out. But somehow, some way, it still jumped up to 70. And the Urshifu Rapid Strikes also jumped up to 54. And the Amoonguss has jumped up to 50. Who was replaced? Rillaboom was replaced in the top 6 by Pelipper. Because the top 5 here were still the same as the ones in the first row. It's just Rillaboom dropped to 7 and Pelipper took a spot. So Pelipper, and I'm assuming because a lot of the Pelippers were on the Cali Ice teams, that's probably why Pelipper did so well, why it converted so high from 18 to 26, is because the Calyrex teams that were carrying it jumped from 18 to 32. So that kind of makes sense. Is actually, let me do some quick math. 18 to 36, the difference of 14%. Okay, this is only difference of 8%. So so not every Pelipper was with Calyrex, most likely. I just want to see if the number was equal. Frigiraffe stayed in the spot. Who fell off? Oh, interesting. Chi-Yu fell off, and Urshifu Rapid fell off. So I'm wondering if the tech of having Chi-Yu and Urshifu Dark to counter the Calyrex Shadow ended up making some of these teams' other matchups worse, and maybe that's why they did not convert into the day 2 use, because they're both obviously under 9.8%, right? Because they were 11-11 when they're not in the top 12, so they're at least worse than Qianpao. So I do wonder if those two were not the call for the other restricteds, and that may have been an issue for them. I would not be surprised at all. And just based on what I see here, it's possible, because they're not like great into Koraidon. Koraidon beats both of them. Terrapagos probably beats Chi-Yu in most situations, especially like Calm Mind. It doesn't really, I guess with Urshifu needed to hit it twice, maybe that could have an issue. But yeah, I just think that maybe just wasn't the call for these two. I still believe in Urshifu Dark in this format, but Chi-Yu could be another story. Want to show you guys another resource here, what I think is cool. This place, Nimbus City Post, they actually break the usage stats down by teams that scored points. I think top 256 got points at this event. Yep. You got 30 points for top 256. So this will go by the percentage of each Pokemon that won points. So like 70% of the Incineroars, 70% of the teams that scored points of the 256 had an Incineroar on it, is what this says, right? 181 out of 256. So Amoonguss 132 out of 256 points for his team had Amoonguss. Urshifu Water, Raging Bolt. Remember what I said, those top 6 are going to be the top 6, and those top 6 not only were the highest used, they also had the highest number of points scored, essentially, because they all, not highest number of total points, but they had the highest number of mons that scored at least a point, basically. So those 6, and then Calyrex Ice jumped up really high to the point where it's even eclipsing the non-restricteds like Pelipper, Flutter, and Frigiraffe. Mons that you can just throw on your team versus with the restricted, you can only pick the one, right? Calyrex Shadow, I know people were talking about it not doing great in this tournament, but with the conversion being 18 to 60, it's not bad. And then like 18% of teams that of the top 256 scored points with it, right? So it's not like it did like trash. It just did not excel in the way, like I said, that we all thought it would. Goldango popping up here and scoring points is insane, because Goldango just kind of never goes away. Especially scoring the same amount as Koraidon and Terrapagos, which also did not, this Pokemon did not show up in either one of the usage graphics. These two both did show up on both usage graphics, day 1 and 2, but Goldango, man, it just kind of finds a way. Even Miraidon, right? Miraidon, who won the tournament, was still really, really low. So like, I have to ask you guys like a question, in a sense, like, do you think that the Miraidon teams that did well was just like mostly a piloting thing, or like a very specific tech with the Terra choice spec stuff, which we'll get into when we get to the top 8, or like was it the call and maybe other people were just running it incorrectly? Some people were like trying to do the Quark Drive stuff? Because 7% is not bad, but it's still, like, it won the tournament, right? It's nowhere near the amount of Calyrex Ice. Calyrex Ice made finals, but it didn't win. So you guys gotta let me know what you guys think. Like, is the Miraidon stuff like real, or like is it like a fluke in your opinion? I think it's, I won't say what it is, because my boys are kind of some Miraidon fans and some Miraidon haters. I'm gonna let them decide that in the comments below if Miraidon's good or not. But I do have opinions on Miraidon. And I do believe that the pilot was effing amazing. So that's the how many ones scored points. If you go to this one, they'll show you the day 2 stats just overall. Why is this moving so slow? Yeah, so 42 Incineroar just like made day 2. 42, yeah, Incineroar made day 2. The same. Ooh, even Calyrex jumped up and stole one of the top 6 spots. That's a strong restricted boy. I can't even sit here and try to pretend. Now it could be because a lot of people over-indexed on Calyrex Shadow, that Calyrex Ice just kind of just caught everyone, I guess, maybe off guard, because it's a Pokemon you should have prepared for, right? But people were so worried about Calyrex Shadow that maybe they just forgot about Calyrex Ice. But that the fact that it jumped into the top 6 is actually insane, because you can only pick the one restricted, like I mentioned previously. And then after that, we don't get into another restricted until Cali, Shadow, and Terrapico. So the top 3 is the top 3 in day 1 and day 2. Like, again, that just makes perfect sense, which I think the top 3 what most people consider the top 3 restricted mines. I don't know if I think they're the top 3, but most people consider them the top 3 restrictors. And they all kind of made day 2. Tiger being the 4th, again, once again, a bit surprising. It's also kind of funny that it's right next to Wellspring. One of his biggest ops is Wellspring. So it's kind of interesting that they're right there together. Any weird restrictors down here at all? Oh, Kyurem made it. That's kind of fun. One Kyurem made day 2. One Lunala made day 2. Any other weird restrictions here? A Diddle made day 2. That was Aaron Trailer. 2 Groudons made day 2, which is kind of nice. Shout out to my boy again. Zamazenta. No Zacians in day 2. Ooh, that's not great. Zacian did not make day 2 at all. Ooh, that's not great. And then we're gonna go to top 8, except we're gonna go to the Victory Road to look at the top 8. Okay, so the top 8 is the real meat and potatoes of everything, right? Because it shows you basically the cream of the crop. So if you see here, we have 2 Miraidons, 2 Calyrex Ice, 2 Terrapico. So that's 6 of the top 8. 1 Zamazenta, and 1 Kyogre. So no Calyrex Shadows, no Koraidons, yeah, no Calyrex Shadows, no Koraidons, no Zacians, and none of the other restrictors that no one really thinks about. So it's a bit concerning for the mons like Koraidon. Zacian, I think, is just it's the pace of Zacian just can't keep up, right? I'm looking at these other mons here. Even Terrapigos, I did Andrew Zhang had like a Specs Terrapigos, which does insane damage on turn 1, right? Zacian gets intimidated, and when it gets intimidated on turn 1, it just becomes a good Pokemon. It instantly becomes a good Pokemon versus an overpowered one. And like even Kyogre, you can just do so much damage against teams that are just not ready for it. On turn 1, immediately on turn 1, you can just catch so many teams for huge damage. Zacian just doesn't have that luxury anymore, unfortunately. Zamazenta can do it because you can't drop his defense boost. The Miraidons, they just have the electric terrain, plus they're running like choice specs so that they can keep their damage even if you reset the terrain. 1, choice spec still does good damage, and 2, they can volt switch out, right? So they can kind of just reset their own terrain. Calyrex Ice does a lot of damage on turn 1 as well, and not only that, it's like very bulky. Because if you look at the restrictors here, all of them, none of them just drop like a wet noodle to anything. None of them just drop to anything very easily. So I think that has something to do with it, right? Because this format is very, very offensive, and because the format is very, very offensive, you kind of need to be able to survive hits, and that's where these Pokemon are kind of seeing the advantages over something like the Calyrex Shadow. Like for example, Calyrex Shadow has to invest a decent amount of bulk to survive like a Terra Water Surging Strikes. These Pokemon simply do not have to do that. They all live it. They all live Terra Water Surging Strikes just easily. Calyrex Shadow does not, and with Urshifu being that high, especially with them all being like Choice Scarf and Mystic Water, Calyrex Shadow just can't take those hits. And that is a big problem, especially in rain. So I think people have to revamp the way they're using that Pokemon, and when they do, it's gonna have a very vengeful resurgence. Don't think that it's just gonna be off the map and no one's using it. No, do not stop preparing for Calyrex Shadow. It's going to destroy you if you do that, I promise you. But the winning team, Rajan Bal's team, had a Terra Electric Miraidon. Terra Electric just makes the damage calcs kind of insane. It kind of makes it ignore the type chart. Other Miraidons, like Terra Fairy or like Terra whatever other people use, and I ran into a Terra Fire one once, aren't going to have as high of a damage output. They'll have maybe more turns because of the defensive utility of those Terras. But the scariest one is definitely the Terra Electric, because those volt switches, like we saw it on stream, one of the Incineroar dropped to Terra Electric volt switch in terrain. Now I did some calcs. I'm pretty sure that's a roll, but the fact that it's even possible lets you know, right, that's kind of insane. It's just the Terra Electric is way too strong. So yeah, the Terra Electric is definitely the strongest variant of it right now. Maybe that changes. I do think what's going to end up happening though is that Miraidon will start to get the hate of the other restricteds that it didn't get before. So that doesn't mean it's never going to win again. That would be asinine, but I don't think it's going to just all of a sudden take off and just start dominating every single tournament. You just gotta think it's very easy to hit on electric types, right? You just kind of just plug in some ground types on your team, and you have an answer for it in a sense, right? Now, I will say Draco's still pretty strong, but again, you can kind of prepare for that stuff. Not to mention, I do think that Miraidon doing well is going to kind of change the whole meta in a sense. Reason being that it's going to make the ground types stronger, right? So maybe Groudon takes a little bit of uptick. With Groudon being higher, maybe Calyrex Ice is a bit stronger. Maybe Calyrex Shadow, people decide to use it even more because it's faster, outspeeds, and can do a lot of damage to the thing before it can Volt Switch out. And then with the ground types being higher, like Groudon, maybe people end up bringing out more Kyogres because they have to deal with more weather now. So this is going to have a significant impact on the meta. We got to see where things settle. It is only the first tournament. The Los Angeles Regionals will be coming up in a few weeks, I believe, and then NAIC in June. So we'll see how things play out after that. Right now, the Miraidon is the winner of this tournament. It's the Prince. I'm not gonna call it the King yet because it's only been one tournament. And Calyrex Ice is still kind of dominating it. It's still 2 in top 8, just as much as Miraidon, and a lot of it in day 2. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, don't forget the question of the day: has the tournament changed any of your previous opinions? Subscribe if you're new. Click like for your boy if you want to see me to cover more future tournaments. And I'll see you guys in the next one.